it'll probably take place over the course of approximately 5 years, but this 46 kV substation will be decommissioned. And this substation, TEP is actually has an easement or a right-of-way agreement with the University of Arizona, who owns the property. So once that old substation is decommissioned, it's up to U of A what to do with the property that's not owned by TEP. We describe what you're seeing here is on the preliminary development plan. Again, this whole project area is about 1.6 acres in size, and the proposed use is an electric substation, which is a distribution system use in the utilities use group of the Unified Development Code. The property is zoned R2, which is a residential zone, and the UDC requires a special exception land use permit for any distribution system use in residential areas. And as I mentioned, the only residential uses that are adjacent to this property are to the west across Vine Avenue. So that's why you'll see we're giving special treatment along the Vine Avenue side. We will have a wall around the entire perimeter of the substation. And I'll get into the details of the wall in just a sec. But we have a setback of that wall 20 feet off of Vine Avenue, and that entire 20 feet will be landscaped. Because of the types of uses around the remaining sides, the north, south, and east side, we are proposing that the walls go right on the property line. And so that's why we're only proposing the landscape treatment along Vine Avenue. The wall that we're proposing will be a brick masonry decorative wall, and it will match the wall of the U of A substation, not at the site adjacent to it, but the one further south. And I'll show a picture of that in just a minute. There are no buildings on this property, so this is all electric equipment. But we are proposing in this little dark gray square here where my cursor is, that is the substation GIS equipment, the gas insulated equipment that is supported or is able to be moved by a gantry crane that is supported overhead by a canopy. And that canopy is 20 feet in height, or 25 feet in height, excuse me, and 25 feet is the maximum height of for structures within R2. So we are complying with that. And just to give you an idea of how much overhead canopy roof coverage that is, this square here with that canopy is approximately 1,400 square feet in size, and that's roughly 2% of this entire project area, or about 2.5% of the area within the wall substation. And then to give you an idea of how far away it is from the western wall, the canopy is approximately 35 feet east of the wall, or about 55 feet from the edge of the Vine Avenue right away. You'll see also on the PDP, I mean, it's a little hard to read on this one, but we do have 3 access gates or entry points into the substation site. We have 2 on Vine Avenue, so this one here, you see the proposed pavement there, and then we have 1 over off of Ring Road. I do want to point out that there will not be any regular traffic coming to this site. It's only on an as-needed basis, so you won't have nearly the same amount of traffic coming in and out of here as, for example, the current use is the heavy traffic generator. I'll show some examples of what we're proposing for those access gates in just a second also. And here's just a summary of what you saw in the PDP, our project area that we're proposing, the 138 kV substation. The only residential uses are to the west across Vine Avenue, which is where we're proposing the 20-foot setback, a landscape border and a new wall. The equipment canopy for the GIS equipment is 25 feet, which is in compliance with the R2 standards. And then we are proposing that masonry wall. It will be 13.5 feet, which will match that of the existing U of A substation further south. We did prepare some photo simulations to show what the substation will look like along Vine Avenue. So we have a couple of different sets of photo simulations. I mentioned there's the larger transmission line siting project, and we provided two sets of photo simulations to show what the conditions will look like after the substation is constructed. And it's two different scenarios, and that will depend on the route of the transmission lines that are determined by the Arizona Corporation Commission. So when TEP takes their proposal for the transmission line siting to the Arizona Corporation Commission, they provide various alternative routes for the transmission lines. And so here's two different scenarios on what could happen. So the differences in these photo simulations are going to be whether on these drop structures here, the large poles and the line. So what we're looking at here on this first one is the photo is being taken from the southwest corner across Vine Avenue, looking northeast at the property. So here is the existing condition on the top photo. You'll see this, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but where you can see this wall, the existing wall, that is actually the substation to the south of the property we're talking about. So that is not going to change, but on the lower photo, this is the proposed conditions. You'll see the new drop structures from the transmission line siting project, and then what the wall and landscaping will look like along Vine Avenue. But this next photo sim will show a little bit better picture of those conditions. So this is a photo that's been taken from the northwest corner of near on Vine Avenue, looking southeast across the proposed site. And in the existing conditions photo, you can see what is on the property now. And those are the U of A facilities. They have really minimal screening. They have some landscaping, but they have complete open fencing. And so the proposed condition does show the 13.5-foot high decorative masonry wall that matches the U of A substation wall further south down Vine Avenue, and some landscaping. And this is where I wanted to point out the change from what you received in your packet a couple of weeks ago versus what we realized was off in our photo sim. So this tree right here, kind of in the center, it was shown higher in the old photo sims. But TEP is very particular about the landscaping that it installed at their new facilities, because they don't want to have any encroachment onto the sag of the transmission lines overhead. So they try to keep their trees, or choose their trees that will be approximately 25 to 30 feet at their maturity. So this tree is actually at about 25 feet high. And then you can see just behind it here, It's there's a canopy that arrow is pointing to, that GIS canopy that I talked about, and that's also 25 feet in height. Let's see. And so this next set of photo simulations, it's from the same vantage point, but this is a little bit different based on if the ACC, the Arizona Corporation Commission, chooses a different route or approves a different route for the transmission line siting project. You can see there's a single drop structure here and the lines. And then it's a little bit of a different scenario here because of the single pole outside of the substation wall. But this one you can see a little bit better what that canopy cover looks like. And then again, we modified that tree to make sure that it's really the height that we would see for this type of vegetation. So this is, as I mentioned, TEP has agreed for continuity, for aesthetics, to match the wall of the University of Arizona substation to property south of this one on Vine Avenue. And that wall is constructed of red brick masonry. It has some jogs in its facade, so it's not just a flat surface. So it is a nice decorative wall. The additional height, normally TEP prefers to have about a 12-foot wall, but going to the 13.5 to match this will also provide some continuity, but it'll also provide additional screening, some noise buffer from any noise within the substation walls. And they actually took the drawings from the University of Arizona. So these are the elevations and details from the University of Arizona's wall drawing that they would intend to match for this one. And then here on the left is a photo of an access gate at their Keno substation. And so it's a steel gate with a perforated screen. And on this next slide, I show some more pictures of that gate. TEP prefers to have a perforated screen, so there is some visibility through to the substation for security. They want to be able to have that visual surveillance ability. So when you're looking at it from a 90-degree angle straight on, you will be able to see into the site. But if you are looking from a side angle, more of oblique vantage point, it's you don't have as much visibility into the site. So it's trying to find a balance on not being able to see in there, but also being able to observe what's going on within the site. We have just a couple of slides showing some examples of the types of landscaping and vegetation that could be used. The landscape plans have not yet been designed, but they will be prepared and submitted with a development package to the city. All of the landscape plans will comply with the City of Tucson landscape requirements. TEP will do native vegetation, and as I mentioned, the types of trees that they choose really are related to how high they will be at maturity. So a couple of the examples would be like the desert willow or the little leaf ash. So they aren't going to be as high as some of the other trees that we might see planted in a lot of new projects. And then, whoops. Here are just some examples of water harvesting methods that could be employed. TEP, of course, has not designed this site yet, so we're not sure what exactly will be used. But they have committed to incorporating water harvesting in accordance with Tucson commercial water harvesting requirements. So so that will be a part of the project. And That's all I have for my presentation, but we're all happy to answer questions if you have any. Otherwise, stop sharing.
Well, thank you very much for walking us through your project there. You say a lot of things have not been designed yet, like the landscape, but I guess this is a question back for staff. Or is it the same? It's the same stage as the other project was, where they're asking for the exception, and we should review it for the character of the zone. Is that right, Maria?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, is the same purview as the previous project.
Same purview, and they're at the same point as the other one. Okay, got it. Looks like a hand is up. Rosemary?
Yes, hi. Great presentation. Thanks for all that information, and I think it looks really attractive. Just a question. So what kind of engagement has been made with the neighbors to the west?
So we did hold a neighborhood meeting when that took place in December. We did have, I can't remember offhand exactly how many people attend, approximately 30 people attend. We did discuss some of these elements, design elements, but the topic of the conversation was primarily about how this fits with the larger transmission line project. And the need for a new substation in this area and what happens with the other substations that are existing.
And just to highlight that, members of the DRC, the special exception land use process requires that neighborhood meeting. The line siting case, which is completely separate, as Robin mentioned, through the Arizona Corporation Commission, there has been extensive outreach to the neighbors that goes well beyond this site. So a lot of the conversation at the neighborhood meeting was really making sure people were focused on this particular piece of that. And so there was, generally there were some questions about the site, what would happen with the site to the south, but overall, I think that, as Robin said, the concerns were related to that larger line siting, not any specifics about this site. There were some questions about noise. There is currently no screening for the use that's there right now, and the U of A's use is a much more intense use with offices and cars and all of that traffic. So just by virtue of putting a wall, especially a 13-foot wall, and then TEP does conduct noise studies as part of their projects, but these do not generate a significant amount of noise. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Nate, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
This is Chris. I understand this project exempt from some zoning and other criteria. Can you speak briefly about the ability to put a 13.5-foot wall? That is typically a special process that would be through the city. How exempt are you? What other reviews are you going through? Or I mean, I guess is there an opportunity that this wall is not going to stay the way it is my question.
So that is a good question.
Through other reviews, not per our purview, but if you move, you're not through the development plan process yet, right?
Right. You're
so
correct.
Is there an opportunity that through that process, engineering or someone like that is going to come back and modify this wall?
So through the actually, this project is subject to zoning requirements. We are not exempt. The U of A is exempt from zoning requirements, but we still comply with the zoning code. What the zoning code indicates in the use-specific standards for the distribution system use at this location is it specifies a 10-foot wall around the site. But it gives the zoning examiner, excuse me, gives the zoning examiner the ability to increase that or modify that height upon request. So what we will be proposing to the zoning examiner when we go to public hearing is an increase in height for this wall to 13.5 feet to match that of the U of A's wall around its substation. Now, what normally TEP would request is a 12-foot wall, which is still above that 10-foot that the zoning code regulates. And the reason that TEP does that is based on their critical infrastructure standards that are by the federal government. And that is what they have come up with as their policy for safety and security for their substations now to be doing a 12-foot wall. So we're asking for a 13.5 to match that of the U of A substation wall.
So through this process, if the zoning examiner approves it, which is the next step after here at the 13 feet that's being requested, then PDSD staff at the engineering stage, which is what you were asking, will approve it at that height. So the opportunity for any changes would be at the zoning examiner. This is the recommending step to get there.
So to get that height difference, you don't need to go through a variance process.
No, the SCLU gives the authority as part of this process to have that modification made. So the zoning code gives you a few different options, right? Since we have to go through the special exception land use, that's where this modification can be recommended and approved.
You see what's happening here, Chris? The TEP standard is 12 feet. So the U of A builds theirs 13.5. So now TEP is trying to get 13.5. So pretty soon the U of A is going to build theirs 15 feet.
So in that picture.
Well, Nate, frankly,
stand?
my concern is that this board currently, we're looking at architectural style, elevation heights, character matching the neighborhood, more aesthetic functions of this. And I'm understanding that there's another process happening parallel to what we're reviewing right now that has potential that the zoning examiner could come back to you and say, no. We aren't gonna what you just inferred to me is that there's another review process happening that could change this application.
So this is part of that review process. So the special exception to the zoning examiner. So you all are making the recommendation as well to the zoning examiner on our request. And then the next step, that one's not the parallel process. It's within the same process. So you're making that.
Okay, I get that now.
I do want to point out, Robin started to point this out.
So I want to hold on a sec. Now that I'm on the same page with you, that's where that zoning examiner reviews part of this normal process that we jump, our recommendation up to them. You're asking for a zoning exemption or to change your 10-foot offset to a 12-foot or 10-foot wall. Now we're going to a 13-foot wall. This is a question for staff. Our purview is just for aesthetics, not for. It sounds like that under that exemption, there would be some other language in here about in our typical reviews, it would be about offsets and heights, material, other items in there. Or is that covered under your special exemption land use criteria that you get to jump around getting approval that the offset is not per code.
Which offset are you talking about, Chris?
They mentioned a 10-foot to a 10-foot wall. Now we have a 10-foot to a 13-foot wall.
I see. I think they're going.
If I was doing that on a landscape project, I would need a variance. And now they're going through a separate process, a special land use exemption, so that exempts that requirement of. I guess what I'm getting at is there opportunity for this to not be approved at development plan stage, or to have another zoning or other mechanism derail you guys a little bit, and then you have to come back through us.
Let me comment on that, Chris. There's always a chance that it could get derailed, but why do we need to contemplate that right now? All we need to think about is their application and proposal specifically for the 13+ foot wall and landscape order. Is it in keeping with the character of the zone? And I think that they have demonstrated that it is in keeping with the character of the zone in which they are.
Well, I would like to comment that I think a humongous wall isn't in character with the zone because it's bordering a historic, Jefferson Park historic area in the city. I don't see a reason for going that high just to match another one. And frankly, the elevations, I think, are distorted because the plants are overscaled, and there's no people on the renderings. So the wall looks smaller than it actually is going to appear. And also, I don't know if it's part of our purview, but these new poles, there's quite a few being put in, and how much bigger are they than the existing? They look massive.
I
And
don't
tilted.
Huh?
I
They're also
don't have
tilted in
the dimensions for those poles. That is outside of the substation request. Those are not decided by this process. That's through the Arizona Corporation Commission process. So that's not part of our request.
Well, I guess my other question is, it seems that on the renderings, the landscape is a huge part of this, making it look attractive. And so I don't know why we're reviewing it without a landscape plan.
So I think this goes back to this conversation you had on the other project as well, which is the timing of these kinds of requests. This is for the basic use, and we're comfortable with if you wanted to make a recommendation acknowledging that the landscaping is a key part of this and needs to be carefully planned for code and as part of the screening. That's going to occur again further down through the development package process.
There is a hand up from Carol.
Yes, it seems to me that this whole project is contingent upon the approval of the Arizona Commission for these giant drop poles. So if they change it, it seems like all of this application is for naught because the whole plan could possibly change. Am I correct?
Actually, that's why we did provide 2 sets of photo simulations. That what the ACC is deciding, it contemplates the substation being there, but the substation itself is not part of that application. So what could change based on the ACC's review and approval are where those lines come into the substation, how many drop poles there are, and just the location of the structures outside of the substation. it doesn't affect the substation. The substation is approved through the city's special exception process.
So to explain the development plan, the PDP that we showed you, and all of the landscaping, the wall, everything that's within the purview of the SELU will not change, depending on one of the options. There you go. Thank you. That's not going to be modified. That's what's going through this approval. And so this approval is for specifically the substation. Then separately, the ACC is making some decisions on the line siting. And as Robin said, the only thing that affects is where those drop lines come in. And we went ahead and showed you both, even though they're not really part of this project, the approval.
Thank you.
I've got another question. It appears that on these drawings of this wall, there's no kind of dimensions. And I get that on the plan, you're saying it's 13.5 feet, but on the elevations that I'm looking at the packet that was given before, so maybe that was added. You know, on the drawings, there's no dimensions to show, you know, the brick coursing and where these, you know, just like on these ones, there's no elevations to actually check those heights. So I'm just worried the scale of the bricks or those, you know, may actually be pretty different. You know, that it may just be kind of a generic piece put in there. And, you know, because it says it's for graphic, I mean, how high is that wall of that photo that you're showing us? Do you know?
That is actually 13.5 feet in height. And I didn't realize that we didn't have that dimension on this plan here.
Yeah, it should say 13.5 over on the right-hand side. And it's intended, what we're showing you is the actual wall that we're replicating, that again matches the existing wall that's to the south. And it has those, I'm going to use the right word, the undulations, the step back as well. And so that the application indicates that it's gonna match that.
So this wall's a big part of our purview in reviewing this elevation to make sure that it matches the character of the zone that we're in. And Susanna has commented, why does it have to be so high? I think that they were trying to match an existing similar wall that is not under our purview at all from the U of A. Is this a request? Who's requested the wall to be? That's not a good question. Can the wall be 12? Can the wall be? So let me just say the wall standard is 10 foot, and TEP normally puts it at 12, and for some reason on this project it's at 13.5. Is that a true statement?
Yes, it is. So the 10 feet is the code, the 12 feet is what CEP does for safety and to comply with federal regulations. And then looking at the area, the fact that it's, you know, a red brick look, which is in keeping with the University of Arizona, even though this isn't U of A, and in keeping with the scale of what's already there, we were intending to match it at the 13.5 feet.
Okay. And it looks like, according to your elevation there are some places where it could be higher than 13.5 as the grade falls down. Keep the top of the wall at a constant elevation, and then the grade is where the grade is. So off to the left there, it could be, you know, 14 or 15 feet possibly. We don't know because we don't see the dimension there.
That's a good question. The approval and the request is for a 13.5, and if it's approved at that, then even if the grade goes down, the cap on the height of that wall will be 13.5 feet.
Oh, so there'll be a step in the wall to step it down. Okay, great. So a couple of things, board. We could ask them to come back with dimensions and a little more specificity. We could also say we want you to go for 12 feet if we think that's a better solution. If we say we want 10 feet, I think TEP is just going to go get an exception based on safety for 12 feet. And I think there's just a style, it's just a style to go to 13.5 versus 12 to match the neighboring substation. Rosemary, I see your hand is up. Let's see, a couple hands are up.
Yeah, thanks. So I just want to say, I think matching the existing wall, the existing brick wall is important. And I just want to kind of play devil's advocate here and say, I think a higher wall is actually a benefit to the neighbors because it creates a better, sound barrier and visual barrier. Some of these structures inside, they've got a 25-foot high canopy. So I think, looking at the angle of a person's eye height and looking across the street, I think the 13.5-foot wall provides better screening for the residential neighbors to the west, given that it's going to be broken up with jogs in the wall and different brick coursing, in addition to the landscaping that would be in the right of way there. So I think the 13.5 is beneficial as opposed to a 10-foot wall or even a 12-foot wall.
Thank you, Rosemary. We have a hand up by Brian. Brian, would you like to speak?
Sure, thank you. Board, my name is Brian Pugh. I'm the land planner for Tucson Electric Power. I just want to add a comment that Robin and Carrie have made. This was basically an agreement, in putting the project together with the University of Arizona as part of a larger project. But this is really looking at it from the context of a streetscape. So we're trying to match that institutional design characteristic that U of A has initially started with the wall they put on their substation. So it's very intentional. So it looks that along that streetscape with Vine. It looks, it ties in with what they've already had, what's already there. We kind of basically bookend the wall which will be the decommissioned 46 kV. So just a larger context in the project itself, so that it ties in with what's been started.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Any other comments or further discussion from the DRB?
Nate, I have one comment.
Go ahead.
It's regarding existing landscaping. Is the intent that the existing trees in this area are going to be impacted by wall footers, or is there I guess these typically the plant material that's under the existing lines now would be not approvable by TEP standards currently. So that's the means or the intent with replacing the trees that are along here. I'm looking at in the images that are provided in the application, they are winter images, so the plant material looks sparse and open. Other images of that area, it's very full and thick and provides a good visual screen. Is there any intention of retaining any of these existing trees, or is it a full replace to meet current TEP standards?
Brian, do you have more information or Renee?
I can answer. This is Renee Darling. Unfortunately, in order to build the foundation for the wall, it will be digging into all of the tree roots, and so there wouldn't be a way to preserve the trees. So that's the reason for replacing them.
Is that confirmed? I mean, by survey location of the trees and existing footer plans for the walls? Seems as though if that level of planning is done, it's not being represented in this documentation we're being shown.
I would have a feeling, Chris, that you're going to see a spread footer under a 13 and a half foot wall that's pretty wide, and in the root zone, and certainly under the canopy of those existing trees. It would be, you could probably save the trees, but it would be the kiss of death if you tried to leave them in place, I think.
I understand that. I just wanted someone from this design team to make those words.
Yeah, in other words, there may not be enough space for the root zone of the trees with this 13 and a half foot wall, is what you're getting at, Chris?
No, I just noticed that part of our purview is staying with the character of the neighborhood, and the character of the neighborhood on this street is mature trees, and there's mature trees on site, and within this area, we have a 20-foot back from curb offset with the sidewalk, and I just wanted to have that conversation that has there been a review of the existing plant material and whether any of it would be able to be maintained. I'm not trying to infer a request to maintain any of it. I just wanted to have a talking point on whether or not that's been investigated at all, because it'd be, I think, beneficial to the project to maintain a mature tree or two on site, just as an existing feature that's there. It's mature. It's they're full, and instead of having to try to establish, all new plant material on the site, that was the only end of it. I think, the 20 feet setback from the curb. I don't think there was mention either that there is a sidewalk being proposed within that 20 foot, which is going to start adding some pedestrian continuity in this area, which would also benefit the neighborhood. So that would have been a very great thing to pop into the presentation.
Well, it would also have been useful to see the foundation of the wall in a drawing of that.
Well, yeah, Rosemary, that was kind of where I was, or Susanna, that's where I was kind of headed with the question about getting through review processes. This is a big wall. That's going to require some strong structural engineering and potential modifications later. So we may be approving something that may not, obviously it's happened. It's, 80 feet south there, this wall exists already. So there's precedent.
Do we want to ask them to come back with a landscape plan which includes the detail of the wall?
Well, if I look at the larger wall, there is mature trees in front of that existing wall that is being replicated. If I look on Google Maps.
And Carol may have other ideas on this, but
if you go further south, you'll see the taller wall. Yeah, you see there's all those existing mature trees.
Right, and the graphic representation brought forward so far, Nate, even though they don't have a full landscape plan, meets the tree requirement for, they're going to need a tree per 30 or, some other requirement. There's an ample plant material if they intend to match that quantity, and
okay.
Plant material
Carol's been waiting with her hand up. Go ahead, Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. That what our chairman just suggested, that they come back with a landscape plan, was what I was going to suggest.
Okay.
And in looking at it, those photos, there are sidewalks to the south, I believe. I would perhaps like to suggest that a sidewalk be placed in along this 20-foot buffer, providing shaded sidewalks for our community. Is it, did I miss it in the plan? Okay, I guess it is. That's good. But yeah, I would like to suggest they come back with a landscape plan.
You are free to make a motion.
Oh, brother.
Mr. Kapler, members of the DRB, and Peter, if you could please chime in. I believe at the stage, of this special exception application, what they provide the zoning examiner with is conceptual plans. The detailed plans, the detailed landscape plans come in, at the development package level.
So we're basically reviewing a concept here for an exception.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
But I guess you could argue that conceptually they're removing all the planting and we're wondering if some existing could be retained.
That could be, Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Kaplan, members of the DRB, that could be part of your, motion, to provide some additional feedback to the zoning examiner.
It looks as though Carol, your hand is up, and Brian, your hand is up, but those might be.
Yeah. Leftover.
Yeah, that is left over. You're fine. Thank you.
Well, board, here's the concept. They've got a new landscape material and a 13.5-foot wall. The wall itself, in my opinion, is appropriate for a high voltage substation, for a barrier around a university, and it matches another similar situation really close by. So I think I can understand why they arrived at that wall that they're proposing. And the plants are all concentrated on Vine Avenue to soften the wall to the residential neighbors. I've heard the comment that, can we save any of the mature trees? And we don't have the answer to that because we don't see the layout of the landscape. So that will probably be revealed when they coordinate the structural plan with the landscape plan, which is a level of coordination that doesn't always happen. But maybe we can say, make sure your landscape and your structural consultants coordinate with the goal of saving some of these existing trees if possible. But here's the concept, board. It's not going to change much. It's a wall and some landscaping and some gates. Rosemary has said that the wall being tall actually does a better job screening the large equipment that's going in there. And I agree with her. And they're not pulling this wall out of nowhere. It's from the context of a nearby substation. And this part of Vine is maintenance and substation row. It's back of house for the university and it's back of house for Banner. So it's a lot of utilitarian structures there. So I would support approving this with some comments on saving the existing trees if there's any other board support for that.
I'm in favor of that direction.
So am I.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Good discussion all. I need someone. Carol, go ahead. I think I heard
Just
you
one
pop
more
up.
comment. In reviewing their proposed plant material, I would not put the Fraxinus greggii, the little leaf ash, against a west elevation hot wall. I think it will burn out there. Just a minor comment.
Okay. Well, Carol did the last
Poorly.
motion, so she's excused from this motion, but someone else needs to make the motion for this case, please.
Thank you, Nathan.
I might take that one on, Nate.
Thank
Carol, I think I kind of agree with a little bit, so I'm going to add to the suggested recommendation at the end, Nate, and I want to pass this by everyone before I do, that there's an attempt made to preserve any existing mature trees as possible, and that review of the proposed plant material within this application for more hardy commercial level plant material, white lantana, mountain lemon marigold, hesperalla, those all require routine maintenance and may not be actually really appropriate for this setting. So I may add a sentence on there to reevaluate the landscape palette proposed for more hardy plant material. Would that be acceptable to everyone?
Yes, Chris, maybe with the addition of verbiage to select plant material that will tolerate a hot reflected heat wall microclimate. Sure. Thank you.
I guess the reason I'm looking at that is the plant material for the area south of this that is where they're taking the example wall. Probably was at one time planted much denser, but only 3 or 4 understory plants actually remain, and there isn't a very strong, other than tree material, landscape presence for that area. So the plant material that's in this proposal is plant material that typically is short-lived and will not be replaced in real world conditions. So that's kind of where I'm headed with that, asking for that suggestion. Not much we can do about it as far as approvals from design review, and that's a Andy Connor question. And but I'd like to add that recommendation to so it's on record.
See if you can get that into your motion.
If I may add one more thing, that it be a contiguous shaded sidewalk landscape plan. So we start shading our sidewalks for healthy, walkable communities.
So we could say
that's kind of the zoning section, right? I mean, it's a tree per 30, and the graphic shown, the conceptual graphic shown is canopy to canopy, this whole length, Carol, right? Would that?
Okay. Yeah, but they're not butted up to the side. I know it's conceptual, but they're.
We could say we could say attention to shade on the sidewalk.
Thank you, Nathan.
Something like that.
You got it, Chris.
Give me 10 seconds to write some notes so I can read it.
While we're waiting for Chris to write, may I ask, in this possible landscape plan, I am assuming they will be showing their water harvesting strategies.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sure the neighborhood will like those because they have a lot of that in that neighborhood. So that should be a benefit to this neighborhood.
And I don't think the design review board will see this application again. Our only purview on this project is the concept and the exception request.
All right, so this has to go as a recommendation, condition, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got my notes here. I just wanted to make sure I had remembered what we did so I didn't have to stop halfway through. Motion's on the screen currently. Nate, I'd like to propose a motion.
Yes.
The Design Review Board has reviewed the applicant's project for compliance with special exemption use specific standards for utilities, distribution system, and finds the project in compliance with the use specific standards set forth in UDC section 4.9.11.A.8 with the following recommendations: that every attempt to survey locate existing mature trees for potential preservation on site be made during the planning process and construction document process, that the plant palette be revisited for more hardy and long-lasting understory varieties, and that tree locations make every effort to provide shade to the pedestrian walkway, sidewalk.
Thank you, Chris.
Mr. Stevie, Mr. Kapler, do you mind restating your motion again so I can make sure I'm taking the correct notes?
Oh my.
Please.
Please.
Good thing you wrote it
Now's
down.
when I need a TiVo. I need to rewind live TV.
You can do it, Chris.
Do I need to?
Just start with the condition. Just start with the condition.
Well, is that the part, Maria? You don't need me to reread the standard motion language. You have that. Obviously, it's in front of you.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Steve.
You're looking for the recommendations, the three recommendations. Three recommendations are that every attempt is made to survey locate the existing mature trees for potential preservation during the planning and construction document phase. That the plant palette be revisited to include more hardy and long-lasting varieties for the understory plant material. And three was that an emphasis of tree location be on shading the sidewalk and pedestrian areas.
Got it.
Great job. Is there a second?
I will
I
second the
second
motion.
the motion. Yeah.
It's been seconded and thirded. So I will call for a vote. All in favor of this motion, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Thank you, Design Review Board, and thank you, applicant.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, now on our agenda, we are open for staff announcements before we adjourn. Are there any staff announcements?
Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, we're just expecting 3 DDO applications to come before you for the substitution of landscape and screening for 3 fire stations in town, and possibly also the the Rialto building. We're just waiting for historic preservation to confirm when they can go back to the PRS.
Great. Good look ahead. Thank you, Maria.
Hey, Maria, do you know what fire stations those are? I may need to, I'm working on a few fire stations right now. I may need to abstain from that or recuse myself from that meeting or vote.
Let me see if I can pull that out.
You can provide that to me offline if you want, and I can verify which ones we're working on. We got
Yeah.
a handful going on right now.
Yeah, once we put the agenda together, Mr. Stevie, then you can let me know whether or not you can participate.
Hey, Maria, this is Nick. It's fire station 7, 15, and 18.
Yeah, I'm working on a couple of those, so I'll need to have that list so I know which ones I'm working on or if I'm involved in that design team.
Better get your shade study ready.
I don't think Norris Design's actively involved in putting this presentation together, but
Okay.
WSM's going to probably do it.
I don't know if you can see my screen.
I can't remember what the numbers are because they're all like, 7, 21, 2019. They're all just kind of fire stations. So I need to double check back within my organization.
Yeah, one is 4902 is Pima Street. One is 2002 South Mission Road, and the third is 1855 West Drexel Road. So again, Mr. Stevie, when I share the agenda, you can let me know at that point if you have any conflict.
Great. Any other comments from staff or board members before we adjourn? I will say that I thought the conversation and the discussion on both of those concepts was good and thoughtful by the board. Given the limited.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to give them a hard time about the height of the wall and the setback, guys. It was more that I wanted to just have it kind of be on record that there might not be a bait and switch here, that they get a concept through and then what actually gets approved and built doesn't match that concept. I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page that way. So I thought ultimately that wall was a good move for them, considering what it looks like now. I mean, that's a blue picket fence with 500 cars parked in that parking lot right now. And if I lived across the street, I'd much rather look at that wall with landscaping. But
Yeah,
that's where I was headed with that line of questions.
I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you.
And then I think we did a really good job, you guys did, picking up the dead oleanders on that previous one. Good catch, everybody. Good job, Google and team. That's all I have. So I guess we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr.
Bye-bye.
Chair. It's 9:12. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone. Have a
all.
good
Thanks,
weekend.
all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.